Hey GBA fans, it's Choice CJ,
Hey guys, my name's Aster.
and we're going to be bringing you guys a series called Game of the Week that is new to the GBA channel, where we are going to be looking at the games from each week that have the best back and forth, the best moments, and we will determine which one is worthy of the title of Game of the Week.
Basically, CJ and I are each going to be picking a game that we felt was the best for that week, and we're going to be debating why we thought it was the best, what moments we enjoyed, and our guest every week is going to be picking between the two for which one wins. And our guest this week is from the Power Rankings. He is Jar.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
No funny joke this time? No?
I just want to say, Aster, in my personal opinion, Envy has the greatest team ever drafted in Draft League format.
There it is.
Okay.
Beautiful.
We'll discuss that in a
Completely
later video, the later Power Rankings video. Before we get into the discussion of the Game of the Week, I will also I would like to also say that we are going to be, after the discussion of Game of the Week, going to be talking about the candidates in our eyes for the different season-long awards that we'll be giving out at the end of Season 7, those being Offensive Pokemon of the Year, Defensive Pokemon of the Year, and Coach of the Year. It's obviously, since we're in Week 1, it's going to be kind of hard to make a good guess as to that, because we don't have more than 1 week's worth of data. But it's still fun to speculate, and we'll do the best we can.
Absolutely. We're going completely on intuition and who we feel could excel in the format in terms of offensive, defensive mon, and as well as coach of the season, who we felt had the best performance after week 1 at the very least, and see who could potentially come out with that title at the end of the year.
Yeah, and there were definitely a few standout performers, so we can at least go off that.
Absolutely. So you want to get us started on your game of the week?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was very hard for me to choose because there were so many close games this week. Lots of games were decided by a 1-0. There were a couple of games that were also decided by a 2-0. There's even a game that went down to the 60-minute timer. So that was quite a nail-biter. But at the end of the day, to me, the best game was the match between the New Orleans Pelipers and the St. Louis Rampardos, between A-Drive and Pokemon, between John and Dan. And it was just so close there at the end between the Melodic and the Feraligatr. Intentions were high, and that's why I really had to make it my pick.
No, absolutely. I understand that. And it's the same reason why I didn't choose it as my game of the week. If it wasn't for the little stall war at the end, which I knew had to happen for the game to end, clearly, and I think John played that amazing, but if it wasn't for that little stall war at the end, I would have probably put it up as my number 1 as well. Wouldn't have made for a very good debate, but it was definitely an amazing match. If we look at some of the things that happened, John used his Tapu Bulu insanely well to pressure Dan's team. Dan did not have a switch in on his team to Woodhammer at all. Not even Victini could switch in very well on that, as we saw from the Horn Leech damage when he went for it. Great prep on Dan's part. I think he did a great job as well. I think both players played phenomenally. Dan setting up that repeated substitute on the Gudra to make sure that it had to switch out after going for repeated Draco Meteors. And then the Continental Crush, I think John sacking off his Skarmory, brilliant play. Did a great job of keeping his Milotic, preserving it for the late game. Also, the Clefable set. You want to talk about that a little bit, CJ?
Yeah, so I think in the team builder, correct me if I'm wrong, he actually had T-Bolt on his Clefable, and then in the battle, he had the Flamethrower, and that really helped him out because it gave him something to hit the Tapu Bulu for a little bit more damage. Granted, the Tapu Bulu could still come in on the Clefable and only take 45-50% from Flamethrower.
Yeah, ultimately didn't end up mattering. Basically.
Yeah, but otherwise, it was able to get in early and set up the rocks, which were a minor nuisance to John's team, and he was able to preserve it well as sack fodder. So that was nice. As you mentioned, the substitute Terrakion could have potentially done a lot of damage. But John sort of tiptoed around it extremely well, sacking the Skarmory, making sure that Terrakion was never able to stay behind a sub for too long. And just the end game there, that is why I chose it. It's the only thing that I guess it stinks is that the haze was such a surprise to Dan, and that's nothing bad to say. But I bet if he had that in the back of his mind, he might have played that endgame a little differently, and I think he alluded to that in his video as well.
Yeah, I think he wouldn't have gone for the second Swords Dance. Absolutely. Jar, how'd you feel about the game?
Well, I actually really like this game as well because it was just Dan came into the match with my opinion a not very good matchup, He lacked switch into John's offense. John had the capabilities, to switch into his offense. And Dan played a magnificent game, like the beginning game, the middle game. He played it really well, set himself up in a position where he could have won. Obviously, sacking off the Delmais hurt him, and then he bet on the wrong hand. He bet on no Hayes Milotic. There was Hayes Milotic that cost him the game. And one thing I'll say is I'm tired of seeing Bulu come in on Clef, so HP Poison Clef just needs to happen when placing Bulu.
Well, I could be wrong, but I think it gets like Sludge Wave or Sludge Bomb or something.
Does it?
I don't know.
I don't think it. I know it gets Flamethrower, Bolt Beam, and I think Fairy Move is the generic offensive Clefable set.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to check that out after we finish recording. But good point there, Char. Absolutely. As I once ran Sludge Wave on Zygarde for a Tapu Bulu.
Trev did it first.
Oh, did he? Okay. Well, yeah. Anyway, great points there, Jar. Absolutely. I think Dan did play a phenomenal game. Ultimately, he still couldn't pull out the win against the Hayes Milotic. Great play from John in the end game as well, knowing when to recover, when to haze. He did say it in his commentary. That brings me into my game of the week. And the game that I decided to go with was Mono versus Crimson, Monotui versus Crimson Seabad, and the Tampa Bay Luxrays against the Detroit Steel Wings. And the reason I chose this game is because there were a lot of crazy things that happened during the game. I want to start off by talking about the Crocodile repeatedly coming in on the Jirachi, and I believe it was only once that it didn't get flinched, but it seemed that it was getting worn down too quickly, and it was his only switch into Jirachi throughout the game. And then later on in the game, something insane happened, and Thousand Arrows got an absolute min roll on Magneton, or one of the lowest rolls possible. And then Analytic HP Ice came through and got a super high roll on the Zygarde, and that resulted in a situation where Crimson still had his Magneton around to potentially be able to deal with the Mantine on Mono's side. However, a little misprediction at the end of the game cost Crimson the game, and I think he could have won it 1-0 had he just stayed in on the Buzzwole with his Kyurem, because he had the Chople Berry, and Mono didn't seem to realize that Chople Berry was there throughout the entire game, and he actually just went for another superpower and knocked out the Magneton on the predicted double switch. So very unfortunate for Crimson there in the end game. A crazy roll, keeping Magneton alive. It was not Sturdy, guys. It was Analytic. That's the only way that HP Ice would have taken out the Zygarde, and that also was an absolute max roll. I did talk to Crimson a little bit about it. So crazy game in my opinion. Absolutely insane. And what do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I agree. So it was a really back and forth game, and the play that you were mentioning there at the end with the Kyurem versus the Buzzwole, the mind games there just seemed like they were really intense. The way that that Crimson brought in the Kyurem versus the Buzzwole earlier in the match did sort of telegraph that Kyurem was probably Chople Berry, and I think that Mono did pick up on that, and so for him to, in that situation, expect Crimson to be expecting the switch.
Yeah.
You know what, it's kind of silly to say, but you know what I mean.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, like it shows that he's playing on another level. And it is unfortunate that it came down to the 50-50. Like, it could have definitely gone Crimson's way. For me, I thought this was one of the best games of the week, but the thing that just really, I guess, disappointed me was the Greninja EV spread. This game wouldn't have been nearly as close if Mono had identified the speed tiers better. And he said this in his video. He's really mad at himself for not EVing it to outspeed the Cobalion. But the Greninja could have put in a lot more work in the end game, and Crimson would not have been in the position he was in had he done that a little better.
Great Cobalion set as well. Amazing. I think Crimson definitely knows how to use that thing, and I'm curious to see how he's going to use it for the rest of the season. But Jar, what did you think about the game?
I agree with a lot of what both of you said. I think CJ's right. That game probably shouldn't have been as close as it was with the Greninja Misgen. I agree it had a lot of really crazy moments, but let's address the sheer guts it takes by Mono to predict a double switch on the last turn, click superpower, and kill the incoming Magneton. That play, I agree with CJ completely. That play shows that he's he was just willing to make a prediction that I guarantee you 90% of players don't make in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely, because if all Crimson had to do was click HP flying and that thing was gone, and then Magneton came in and then just swept up the Mantine very easily with a T-Bolt or even a Volt Switch for that matter. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think Mono played that in-game amazing. And so, Jar, we're at the portion where you get to choose between our 2 games of the week, and should be coming up on your screen as he says it. Who do you think had the better game of the week?
I have to give it to CJ's pick of the St. Louis Rampardos versus the New Orleans Pelicans.
No!
Yeah.
1-0. Here we go.
Just because of the fact that the Crimson and Mono game would not have been as close if Mono had not misprepped his Greninja. I agree it had maybe some more crazy moments, but the back and forth from the St. Louis Rampardos New Orleans Pelicans game was just so compelling, especially watching it from Dan's side. I watched both perspectives. Watching it from Dan's side, you just didn't know who was going to win that battle at the end. Dan had it, and at the last second, John revealed Hayes, and it was a really cool match to watch.
Yeah, you can see Dan's heart sink
Absolutely.
when that happened. I felt really bad.
Yeah. The fact that he had to make commentary for another 15 turns too probably didn't.
Yeah, that was brutal. Oh man.
Very
Yeah.
rough, my dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
All right, so that wraps it up. Unfortunately, I'm 0-1 against CJ for this season. We're having a little bit of a friendly competition for
Get
this.
used
so.
to it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, well, you're not coming back. All right, let's move on to the next portion of the show. Jar, if you do want to stick around with us, that's fine. We're going to move on into the offensive, defensive MVPs of the season and as well as coach of the season. Now, again, just to remind you guys, this is week 1. We're purely going off of what we've seen for the first week and what we think coaches will be able to do with the Pokemon that we decided to place up at the top. I'll let CJ take the offensive Mons of the week. Go ahead, my friend.
yeah, absolutely. Just to echo what you said, this is almost more of an offensive Pokemon of the week discussion than it is of the season at this point, but in the future weeks, it'll be more of a cumulative record. But there were a lot of really great performers this week and lots of honorable mentions. But I think at the end of the day, the Pokemon that I would pick, and I guess I'm a little biased because it's from the match that I chose as the match of the week, but I'm going to give it to the Tapu Bulu just for the amount of pressure that it applied to Dan's team. Like whenever Bulu came in, basically Dan had to figure out what he was going to sack, and it just robbed him of all the momentum.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was really tremendous.
While Bulu only did pick up, I believe it was 2 kills for John, and there were other Pokemon that ended up with more kills. It's more the pressure and the fact that Dan didn't have a switch in and had to play around the Bulu as best he could that really gives it the top spot in our eyes. Other honorable mentions, if you want to just bring those up.
Yeah, absolutely. I would give honorable mentions to a suite of fighting types this week, being Buzzwole for the Tampa Bay Lux Rays, really putting on a lot of pressure on Crimson and netting that really crucial kill against the Magneton. Conkeldurr really did great for Geo, and the Giantes got 3 kills, netting the final kill on Weavile to secure him the 1-0 victory. And then you also got to give a shout out to the Hawlucha with a nice 4 kills against the Chimichargers, but that's worthy of a whole nother discussion.
Absolutely. Physical wall breakers looking like they're going to have a huge part to play this season from what we can see already. Moving on into the defensive MVPs for this week or season, I guess you could say. At our number 1, we have Zapdos. We feel that Cooper and the Utah Jasmine played their Zapdos very well. Fortunate that it did have enough speed to outspeed Modest max speed Volcanion, so that it was also had enough speed to take on the Silvally in the end game. Zapdos able to chip away at the both the Thundurus to give Cooper the win by HP percentage at the end of the game. Also able to chip away at the Kyurem Black, put it in range of Mach Punch from Breloom, which Chimp actually wasn't expecting him to bring. So Zapdos is up there in our eyes. We do feel that it's one of the best electric types in the format just because of its ability to be run offensive, defensive, a little bit faster to take on different walls. So very solid mon. We can see it putting in a lot of work, especially in Cooper's hands. Other than that, in second and third place, I guess you could say, we have John's Milotic from our match of the week for this week. Of course, John, this pretty much defined bringing a Pokemon and having it do what it was meant to do. And it was there solely to take on the Feraligatr, but it did more than that during the game. It was also a switch into other mons on Dan's team. And Milotic just coming through for John in the end there. And we also did want to bring up Mantine. That Mantine was able to completely wall out the Kirim, and that also what it was meant to do, able to seal up the game for Mono in the end there. So very nice for the defensive Pokemon of the season. And CJ, if you want to cover who we felt is coach of the season so far.
Yeah, I felt that since it was his first week in the GBA, it would be appropriate to give a shout out to Gator, coach of the Florida Gators, for the awesome Pyukumuku set, going for the light screen and the baton passing into the Hawlucha, which set up a little, it wasn't quite a sweep, but it was pretty darn close to a sweep on the Chimichargers. And it's just funny because MV was sort of the breakout star of Season 6 of the GBA. Even though he didn't go on to win the title, he really caught a lot of people off guard. And I think this is sort of a similar situation. Gators draft wasn't extremely well regarded. I think our friend Jar here gave him a C ranking in his power
right,
rankings. And he comes in here and kind of thrashes MV in week 1. So just for the surprise factor, I think he really deserves the mention here.
I was talking to MV after the draft stream, and he was talking about how he feared, like, when he first came into the league, he took on Mogwai week 1. You know, one of the former champions, a very competitive player. He was new, and he took down one of the best players, and he felt a similar situation coming on with Gator. A new guy coming in to take on one of the previously best known battlers and taking him down, and it came true.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, Gator has shown himself I've seen him in different leagues as well, and he's been performing very, very well, despite not having your traditional draft necessarily with all of the elements that you're looking for in a draft. And it might not always look perfect, but Gator is able to use the Pokemon that he drafts extremely well. He really likes Pyukumuku for some reason, and I'm starting to see why. Very nice team support with that light screen setting up for the Hawlucha mini sweep. The Thunder, Latios with Calm Mind, very nice to take advantage of MV's rain at the end of the game. Also, the pursuit from the Blade on the Alakazam was fantastic. The double pursuit on top of that. He expected MV to switch out on the second turn, which was crazy. That was
Actually, he flipped a coin.
Yeah, which is, I don't know if I really believe him on that, but, you know, I guess take it for what it is.
I didn't actually listen to his commentary. I only listened to MV's, but he flipped a coin for that. That's insane. That's really good.
Yeah, the gods are on his side.
That's the only true way to be good at Pokemon anymore.
Precisely. There you go. So Gators got it for coach of the season or the week, however you want to say it. And that's going to be it for us, guys, for this week. I'll let CJ wrap it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. On behalf of Aster and myself and Jar as well. Jar, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, guys.
And do want to thank you guys for watching, and we would really appreciate it if you guys down in the comment section below would tell us what you thought was the best match of the week, and if you have any feedback or responses to our discussion, make sure you share that down below.
Also, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and sorry I cut you off.
No, that's no problem. Yeah, make sure you stay tuned to the GBA channel by subscribing, and you'll be able to get all of the analyst videos in your feed, and you'll be able to catch us at the same time next week.
And that's going to be it. Catch you guys later.
Peace.